The doctor said 14 days. That's how long I had before the tumor in my liver would block the bile duct completely. Surgery cost $4,200 out of pocket, my share after Medicare. Without it, I'd turn yellow, my organs would shut down, and I'd die in a hospital bed, staring at a ceiling I didn't recognize. I called my son. He laughed. Not a cruel laugh, but the kind people use when they think you're exaggerating. Dad, I just bought a boat. A 47-footer. You should see it. Then his wife's voice in the background, sharp and impatient. Tell him we're late for the marina party. My son said he'd look into it next month. Next month. I had 14 days. That night, my daughter showed up at my door, still in her gas station uniform, smelling like diesel and cheap coffee. She put a ziplock bag on my kitchen table. Inside, $1,100 in crumpled bills. I've been saving since your diagnosis, she said. It's everything I have. She made $9.50 an hour. Hello everyone and welcome. Before we begin, I'd appreciate it if you'd like and subscribe to stay connected with more stories like this. Let me know in the comments where you're listening from. I love hearing from you. Quick note, this story blends real-life lessons with fictional elements for educational purposes. Any resemblance to actual people or places is coincidental, but the message carries truth worth hearing. The oncologist's office smelled like hand sanitizer and dread. I'd been coming here for 3 months, ever since the CT scan found what my body had been hiding. Doctor Pham was a small woman with kind eyes and a voice that never lied to you, even when the truth was something you didn't want to hear. She pulled up the scan on her monitor and pointed to the mass near my liver. It had grown. Mr. Malone, we talked about this. The tumor is pressing against the common bile duct. If we don't operate within 2 weeks, you're looking at obstructive jaundice, liver failure, and a very difficult end. I knew what she meant by difficult. I was 67 years old. I'd spent 31 years as a structural ironworker in Minneapolis, walked beams 40 stories up, bolted steel in January wind chills that froze your eyelashes shut. I knew what difficult looked like, but dying slow, organs shutting down one by one while your skin turns the color of old mustard, that was a different kind of difficult. The surgery is scheduled for the 19th, she said. Your copay is $4,200. Billing needs it before they'll prep the OR. $4,200. I'd checked my bank account that morning in the parking lot, sitting in my truck with the heat running because the driver's side window didn't seal right anymore. Balance, $2,340.18. My pension from the Ironworkers Union covered rent, utilities, groceries, and not much else. Medicare handled 80% of medical costs. But that remaining 20%, the gap they don't tell you about until you're standing in it, that was mine to figure out. I thanked Dr. Pham and walked out through the waiting room, past a woman my age, hooked to an IV pole, reading a romance novel, past a man in a wheelchair who'd lost most of his hair, but none of his dignity, past people fighting for their lives in a system that charged them for the privilege. My truck sat in the lot, a 2004 Chevy Silverado with 230,000 miles on it. Rust along the wheel wells, a crack in the windshield that had been spreading since last winter. I climbed in and sat there with the engine off, watching my breath fog in the November air. I could call my son, Derek, 41 years old, lived in Wayzata, the rich suburb on Lake Minnetonka where the houses had boat lifts and the driveways were heated so you never had to shovel snow. He'd started a medical device company 8 years ago. Something about surgical instruments, I never fully understood it, but I understood the numbers. Last year, his company pulled in $11 million. I saw it in the Star Tribune, a profile piece with a photo of Derek and his wife Vanessa standing in their kitchen that was bigger than my entire house. I hadn't called him in 4 months. He hadn't called me in longer. We'd drifted, people say, like it's a natural current. Like nobody steered the boat away. But somebody always steers. Somebody always decides the distance is easier than the effort. I picked up my phone and called. It rang 5 times. When he answered, I could hear wind, water, laughter, outdoor sounds, happy sounds, the sounds of a life with no sharp edges. Hey, Dad, what's going on? We're just heading out on the lake. November in Minnesota. The lake should have been freezing over. But rich people have ways of extending summer that the rest of us don't. I need to talk to you about something medical, I said. I kept my voice steady. 31 years of walking steel in high wind teaches you how to stay level when the ground is gone. Okay, sure. Hold on, muffled sounds. He was talking to someone. I heard Vanessa's voice. Babe, the caterer's asking about the wine. Then Derek came back. Sorry. What's up? I have a tumor. Liver. They need to operate in 2 weeks or I'm going to die. Silence. Lake sounds. A motorboat somewhere in the background. Jesus. Dad. Are you sure? The oncologist is sure. Surgery is scheduled. But I need $4,200 for the copay. Medicare won't cover it all. More silence. Then Derek exhaled long, slow, the kind of exhale people use when they're about to say something they've already decided. Dad, this really isn't great timing. I just closed on a boat, 47-footer, and we're renovating the guest house. Everything's allocated right now. Allocated. The word sat in my ear like a splinter. It's $4,200, I said quietly. I know, and I'm not saying no. I'm saying let me look at things next month. Maybe after the renovation's done I can move some. I don't have next month. I have 14 days. Vanessa's voice again. Closer now. Derek, we're late for the Hendersons. Dad. Look, can we talk about this later? I've got people waiting. People waiting. I repeated. Don't do that. Don't make me feel guilty. I'm not the bad guy here. These things take time too. 14 days. I'll call you tomorrow. I promise. He didn't call tomorrow. He didn't call the day after that. On the third day, I stopped waiting. Something shifted inside me during that phone call, and it wasn't the tumor. It was something colder, harder, something that settled into my ribs like rebar in wet concrete. My son had chosen a boat over my life. Not dramatically, not with cruelty, just casually. The way you decline a dinner invitation you can't be bothered with. Sorry, got plans. Maybe next month. I drove home through Minneapolis streets I'd helped build. The IDS tower I'd bolted steel on the 42nd floor in 1988. The Hennepin Avenue Bridge. My crew reinforced the supports in 94. U.S. Bank Stadium. I was 61 years old and still walking iron when they built that thing. Every skyline view in this city had my fingerprints on it, and I couldn't afford to keep my own body from shutting down. The knock came at 6 that evening. I opened the door and found my daughter Rachel standing on the steps, still in her Super America uniform. Blue polo, name tag crooked, hair pulled back in a ponytail that was coming loose. She was 29. Younger than Derek by 12 years. Different mothers. Rachel's mom died of an aneurysm when Rachel was 6. I raised her alone after that, making lunches before dawn, dropping her at school on my way to the job site, picking her up with steel dust still in my hair. She had a ziplock bag in her hand, the kind you put sandwiches in. Dad, don't say no, she said before I could speak. Just don't. She came inside, set the bag on the kitchen table, and unzipped it. Bills spilled out. 1s, 5s, 10s, a few 20s. Wrinkled, smoothed flat, folded carefully, the kind of money that's been counted many times. Rachel, $1,100. I've been putting away a little every paycheck since Dr. Pham told you about the surgery. Skip the argument. I already had it with myself and I lost. You make $9.50 an hour. You have rent. I have a father who walked steel for 31 years, so I'd never go hungry. You think I'm going to let you die over a copay? Her eyes were wet, but her jaw was set. The same jaw I saw in the mirror every morning. Stubbornness isn't genetic, people say. They're wrong. I can't take your rent money. It's not rent money. It's Dad stays alive money. Different budget. I looked at the cash on my table. $1,100. Earned 1 gallon of gas, 1 pack of cigarettes, 1 energy drink at a time. From a woman who sometimes ate ramen 3 nights in a row so she could make her car payment. I picked up the bag. It weighed almost nothing. It weighed everything. Thank you, I said. My voice cracked on the second word. She hugged me hard, fierce, the hug of someone who's terrified of losing the only parent she has left. You're not dying on me, she whispered. Not like this. She left 20 minutes later. I watched her taillights disappear down the street, then sat at the kitchen table and did the math. Bank account, $2,340. Rachel, $1,100. Total, $3,440. I needed $4,200. Still short by $760. The next morning, I was sitting on my porch drinking coffee when a truck pulled up. Dark blue Ford, Union sticker on the bumper. Hank Kovacs climbed out. Hank was 58, still active. Local 512. Built like a man who'd spent his whole life lifting things other people couldn't. We'd walked steel together for 15 years before I retired. Tommy Ibarra told me you're in a spot, Hank said, not bothering with hello. We spend our conversation budget on the beams, where talking keeps you from thinking about how far down the ground is. I'm handling it. Shut up. The guys took a collection. He pulled an envelope from his jacket. Don't insult us by saying no. I took the envelope. Inside, $940 in cash. A note on a piece of receipt paper in Tommy Ibarra's handwriting. For Ray Malone, from Local 512. You walked steel with us. We walk with you. No payback. Just get better. $940 from men who spent their days 60 stories up in the cold, who came home with aching backs and calloused hands and paychecks that never quite matched the risk. Men with mortgages, child support, truck payments. They gave almost $1,000 to a retired brother they hadn't worked beside in 6 years. Total now, $2,340 plus $1,100 plus $940. That was $4,380. Enough. More than enough. I called the billing office and paid in full that afternoon. But something else happened that week. A letter from the Minnesota Department of Labor. Official envelope. State seal. I almost threw it away. I get junk from the state all the time. Pension statements, tax forms, things that matter to bureaucrats and nobody else. But I opened it. Inside, a letter and a check. In 2003, I'd fallen 22 feet from a beam on a parking ramp project in Bloomington. Safety cable snapped. Landed on a concrete form. Shattered my left hip. Cracked 4 ribs. Punctured a lung. The contractor's insurance denied my claim. Said I'd failed to inspect my own equipment. I fought it for 2 years. Lost. Went back to work with a titanium hip and a limp I never fully shook. 20 years later, the state had reviewed denied workplace injury claims from 2000 to 2005. My claim was flagged as improperly denied. Medical records confirmed the equipment failure. The letter apologized for the delay. The check was for $34,000. I sat down at my kitchen table and stared at that number until my eyes blurred. Yesterday, I'd been $760 short of survival. Today, I had $34,000 in change. More money than I'd seen in one place since I sold my house after retirement and moved into this rental. The surgery happened on schedule. Dr. Pham removed the tumor, cleared the bile duct, sent me home after 4 days with a row of staples across my abdomen and instructions to rest for 6 weeks. Rachel drove me home. Hank brought groceries. Derek sent a text. Heard the surgery went well. Glad you're okay. 7 words. No call. No visit. Just 7 words and a period. That text sat in my phone like a splinter I couldn't reach. But I wasn't thinking about Derek's 7 words. I was thinking about what Gregory Hale could find with $34,000 and enough time. Gregory was a forensic accountant turned attorney. We'd met years ago when he helped a union brother fight a wage theft case. Sharp, quiet. The kind of man who reads footnotes for fun and finds crimes in spreadsheets. I called him the week after surgery. Ray Malone. Been a while. I need you to look into someone's finances. Everything. Bank records, business filings, debts, lawsuits. All of it. Who? My son. Silence. Then, "This is going to hurt." "It already does. Now I want to know why." He took 3 weeks. When he called me back, his voice was flat the way people sound when they've found something they wish they hadn't. I drove to his office in Street Paul. He had a folder on his desk, thick as a phone book. "Your son's company, Precision Surgical Solutions, looks impressive on paper. 11 million in revenue, contracts with 3 hospital systems, 62 employees." He paused. "On paper, what's underneath?" "Debt. 7.2 million. He's leveraged at 90%. For every dollar he owns, he owes 90 cents. He's been juggling credit lines, delaying vendor payments, borrowing from one account to cover another. The boat, the renovation, the house in Wayzata, all financed. He doesn't own any of it. The banks do. I absorbed that. My son, the one who couldn't spare $4,200, was $7.2 million in debt." Gregory pulled out another document. "But that's not the worst part." He slid a loan application across the desk. "Northland Federal Credit Union, 2020, $60,000 personal loan, co-signed by Raymond Malone." I never co-signed anything. "I know. I had a handwriting analyst examine the signature. It's forged. Your son practiced your handwriting and faked your signature to secure a loan he never repaid. It defaulted 14 months later. It's been on your credit report for 4 years. I thought about the auto loan I'd been denied last year, the credit card applications that came back rejected. I'd blamed my age, my income, my medical history. It was Derek. My son had stolen my name. "There's more," Gregory said quietly. He showed me the next document. A contract between Derek and a man named Paul Vang, a Hmong immigrant who'd spent 20 years building a small but profitable medical supply distributorship in Brooklyn Park. Derek had approached Paul in 2019 with a partnership offer. Paul invested $380,000, his life savings, his children's college funds, a second mortgage on his home. 6 months in, Derek triggered a clause in their agreement. Paul had missed a board meeting. He was at his mother's bedside in a hospital in Fresno. She was dying of kidney failure. Derek scheduled the meeting for the same day Paul flew to California. The clause said, missing a mandatory meeting without 48 hours' notice constituted voluntary forfeiture of ownership. Paul lost everything. His wife left. He moved into his brother's basement. He drove for DoorDash now, 16 hours a day, trying to dig out of a hole my son had dug for him. Derek sent flowers to the hospital, Gregory said. Card said, "Thinking of your family." 3 days later, his lawyer sent the forfeiture letter. I closed the folder. Couldn't read any more. Not yet. My hands were shaking, not from age or illness, but from the weight of understanding something I'd spent years refusing to see. My son wasn't struggling. My son was a predator. The suits, the boat, the Wayzata address, it was all theater. Underneath was a man who forged his father's name, robbed a grieving son, and let his own father face death over $4,200 he could have found between his couch cushions if he'd cared enough to look. "I want to meet Paul Vang," I said. Gregory nodded. "I'll set it up." Paul and I met at a Vietnamese restaurant on Eat Street in South Minneapolis. Small place, steam on the windows, the smell of pho and lemongrass. Paul was 44 but looked 60, thin, careful. The body language of a man who'd learned not to trust easily. He told me everything. The partnership, the promise, the betrayal. His mother dying in Fresno while Derek triggered the forfeiture clause back in Minnesota. The flowers at the hospital, the legal letters, the divorce, the kids asking why they had to move. "Your son destroyed my family," Paul said. Not angry, just stating a fact, the way you'd say it's raining. "I know. And I'm sorry. Why are you here now?" "It's been 5 years. Because I just learned who my son really is. And I'm not going to let it stand." Something shifted in Paul's face. Not hope he'd been burned too badly for hope, but recognition. Like he'd been waiting for someone to finally say what he'd known all along. "I kept everything," Paul said. "Every email, every contract, every text message. I knew someday it would matter. It matters now." He brought me a box the next day. 5 years of evidence, organized with the precision of a man who'd built a business from nothing and watched it get stolen. Gregory found the rest. A private equity group in Chicago held $5.8 million of Derek's commercial debt loans on his office building, his equipment, his warehouse. They wanted the bad paper off their books. Gregory formed a shell company, Ironbridge Holdings, LLC, registered in Wyoming for privacy, and bought the debt for 31 cents on the dollar. Used the structure of Derek's own over-leveraged empire to finance the acquisition. When the transaction cleared, I owned my son's company. Every loan, every line of credit, every asset that Precision Surgical Solutions had pledged as collateral. All of it belonged to Ironbridge Holdings. And Ironbridge Holdings belonged to me. The formal notice went to Derek on a Monday. By Tuesday, Vanessa had moved to her sister's house in Edina. By Wednesday, Derek's phone started ringing. Creditors, vendors, partners, all asking the same question. Who is Ironbridge Holdings? He called me Thursday night. His voice was stripped of everything I'd ever heard in it. Confidence, charm, casual dismissal. What was left sounded young, scared, like the 8-year-old who'd called me from a friend's house at midnight because he'd had a nightmare and needed his dad. Someone's trying to destroy me, he said. They bought all my debt. I don't know who they are. That's unfortunate. I said, Dad, please. I need help. I need advice. You know people. I know ironworkers. Men who walk steel in January for $40 an hour. I don't know anyone who helps sons who let their fathers die over a copay. That's not fair. You want to talk about fair? I had a tumor the size of a golf ball pressing on my bile duct. You bought a boat. Silence. Then, I made a mistake. You made a lot of mistakes. I have a folder full of them. What does that mean? It means I know about the forged loan. I know about Paul Vang. I know about all of it. His breathing went ragged. How? 14 days, Derek? That's all I'm going to say. You'll get a meeting notice from Ironbridge Holdings. Show up. I hung up. He called back 9 times that night. I didn't answer. The meeting was set for a Friday evening. Local 512's Union Hall on East Lake Street. A brick building from the 1940s. American flag out front. The smell of coffee and old wood inside. The hall could hold about 80 people. 93 showed up. Ironworkers, retired and active. Rachel with her 2 roommates who'd become like family. Paul Vang with his brother and his children. Hank Kovacs. Tommy Ibarra. Father Miguel from the church on Franklin Avenue where I'd gone every Sunday since Rachel's mother died. Gregory Hale with his briefcase and his evidence. I arrived an hour early and stood at the window, watching them come through the snow. December, in Minneapolis. 6 below zero. Wind cutting off the lakes like a blade. But they came. Trucks and sedans filling the lot. Breath fogging in the cold. Boots on salted sidewalks. 93 people who'd decided that showing up for someone else was worth freezing for. Derek arrived at exactly 7. Alone. No Vanessa. No lawyer. No business partner. Just Derek in a wool coat that probably cost more than Rachel made in a month. He stopped inside the door and scanned the room. 93 faces looked back at him. Sit down, son, I said. He sat. And then we began. Paul Vang went first. Stood up with his evidence box and told the room everything. The partnership, the investment, the forfeiture clause triggered while his mother lay dying in a hospital bed in Fresno, the flowers Derek sent, the legal letter that arrived 3 days after the funeral. I lost $380,000, Paul said. My marriage, my home, my children's college savings. I deliver food now, 16 hours a day. He looked at Derek. You sent flowers to my mother's hospital room. Then you stole everything I had. Derek stared at the table, said nothing. Rachel stood next. She didn't yell. She didn't cry. She was calm in a way that was worse than anger. I make $9.50 an hour, she said. I gave Dad $1,100. That was 4 months of saving. I ate ramen. I skipped oil changes. I let my phone get shut off for 2 weeks. She held up her bank statement. This is what sacrifice looks like when you actually love someone. She looked at Derek. You bought a boat. The room was silent. Then Gregory stood up and laid it all out. The forged signature. The $60,000 loan. The credit destruction. The leveraged empire built on other people's pain. Document after document. Page after page. The full anatomy of a man who'd chosen money over every person who'd ever trusted him. When Gregory finished, I stood. I own your debt, I said to Derek. All $5.8 million. I can foreclose tomorrow. You'd lose the company, the office, the warehouse, everything. You'd walk out of here with nothing but the coat on your back. Derek's face was gray. His hands trembled on the table. But that's not why we're here. I let that sit. I'm giving you a choice. Option 1. You sign over 50% of Precision Surgical to Paul Vang. Full partnership, equal ownership. No clauses, no tricks, no forfeiture traps. You establish the Margaret Vang Memorial Fund named after Paul's mother and fund it with $75,000 a year. Grants for immigrant families facing medical emergencies. Permanent, non-negotiable. And you remove the Donovan name, the Malone name from everything. You don't get to trade on the reputation of a man you betrayed. Derek opened his mouth. I held up my hand. Option 2. I foreclose. Sell everything. Split the proceeds between Paul, the Union Brotherhood, and Rachel. You walk away with nothing and you never speak to me or your sister again. The room waited. 93 people breathing in unison, watching a man decide who he was going to be. That's not a choice, Derek whispered. It's more of a choice than you gave me. You gave me 14 days and a boat. Before I reveal what he decided, type 7 in the comments, so I know you're still with me. Derek asked for 24 hours. I gave it to him. He sat in his office all night. I know because Gregory had someone watching the building. At 3 a.m, he called Paul Vang. I'm sorry, he said. Paul's answer was the same one I'd been thinking. Are you sorry you did it? Or sorry you got caught? Derek didn't answer right away. Then he said, both. And I don't know how to make it right. But I want to try. He called me at 6 a.m. Asked to meet alone. I chose the construction site of a new affordable housing project on the north side. A place where things were being built honestly, with union labor and no shortcuts. He looked like he hadn't slept in a week. Coat wrinkled. Eyes raw. He looked, for the first time in years, like a human being instead of a billboard. I'm choosing option 1, he said. Why? Because Paul deserves it. Because those families deserve it. Because you almost died, and I bought a boat, and I have to live with that for the rest of my life. Living with it isn't enough. You have to change. I know. Do you? Because paper is easy. Signing a contract takes 30 seconds. Being a decent man takes every day for the rest of your life. He looked at me, tears on his face, freezing in the December air. Can we ever be father and son again? I studied him, the boy I'd taught to ride a bike, the teenager I'd driven to hockey practice at 5 a.m, the man who'd let me face death alone. I don't know, I said honestly. But you can start earning it. He signed everything that afternoon at the Union Hall. 50 people witnessed it. Paul Vang became his equal partner. The Margaret Vang Memorial Fund received its first deposit that week. The company was renamed Precision Community Medical. No Malone. No family name to hide behind. Paul shook Derek's hand. Not warm, not cold, just real. Your father is a better man than you deserve. I know, Derek said. Rachel hugged me afterward. You did good, Dad. We'll see. Redemption isn't a signature. It's what happens after. 6 months passed. Derek moved into a 1-bedroom apartment in Richfield. Vanessa took the Wayzata house in the divorce. He didn't fight it. He showed up at Paul's office every morning. They rebuilt the company together, smaller, cleaner, focused on affordable surgical equipment for rural hospitals. Their first major project supplied 3 Native American health clinics in northern Minnesota with equipment they'd been waiting years to get. Derek drove me to my oncology appointments every 2 weeks. Sat in the waiting room reading magazines he pretended to care about. Didn't talk much, Didn't need to. Showing up was the conversation. The Memorial Fund's first grant went to a Somali family in Cedar Riverside. Their daughter needed heart surgery. Insurance wouldn't cover the specialist. The fund did. Paul's children helped present the check. They smiled for the first time in a long time. Rachel got promoted to assistant manager at the gas station. Better hours, benefits, enough to stop eating ramen. She picked up a night class at community college business management. She wanted to open her own shop someday. One evening in May, I drove past a billboard on I-35W. It used to show Derek's face, confident smile, expensive suit, the image of success. Now it showed a photo of ironworkers on a beam, silhouetted against a Minneapolis sunrise. The text read, "Built by hands that show up. Precision Community Medical." I pulled over and looked at it for a long time. At my next oncology appointment, Dr. Pham told me the scans were clear. No recurrence. She smiled, really smiled, and said, "Whatever you're doing, keep doing it." Staying alive out of spite, I told her. She laughed. That works too. On a Saturday in June, I went to the local 512 hall for the monthly meeting. Same brick building, same flag, same coffee pot that had been there since the Nixon administration. Hank Kovacs asked about Derek. "He's learning," I said. Slowly. "But he's learning. You proud of him?" I thought about it. I'm proud of who he's becoming, not who he was. After the meeting, I hung a small brass plaque on the wall by the entrance. It read, "For those who show up when it costs them something. RM. Iron walks with iron." Derek was waiting outside when I came out. Snow was falling soft, quiet, the kind that makes Minneapolis look like a painting. "Dad," he said, "what does it mean to be a Malone?" I looked at him. At the man who'd hung up on me 8 months ago, at the boy I'd carried on my shoulders through the state fair when he was 4, laughing at the top of the Ferris wheel. "It means you show up," I said. "Especially when it's hard. Especially when nobody's watching. Especially when it costs you something." He nodded. Not the quick, dismissive nod of a man who wants to move on. The slow nod of someone writing something down inside himself. "I'm trying," he said. "I know." "Keep trying." We stood there in the snow for a moment. Father and son. Not healed, not whole, but standing. And sometimes standing is enough. I'm 67 years old. I've got a titanium hip, a scar across my abdomen, and a pension that barely covers rent. But I'm alive. I walked steel for 31 years. I helped build a skyline. And the thing I'm proudest of isn't any building with my fingerprints on it, it's that when my son lost his way, I didn't give up on him. I gave him a mirror instead. Don't wait until someone you love is 14 days from dying to figure out what matters. Don't measure your worth by what's in your bank account. Measure it by who shows up at your door with a Ziploc bag full of crumpled bills and says, "This is everything I have." Family isn't blood. It's who shows up when yours is on the line. If this story moved you, share your thoughts in the comments. Have you ever had to choose between what's easy and what's right? Have you watched someone fall and then rise again? Your stories matter. Share this video with someone who needs to hear it. Subscribe to hear more journeys of justice, redemption, and the power of second chances. Thank you for staying until the end.